Japan is often portrayed as a symbol of discipline, technological advancement, and stability. A nation with low crime rates, excellent infrastructure, the world's third largest economy, and one of the highest life expectancies on Earth. From the outside, it appears to be a model society, efficient, organized, and future-oriented. Yet, this modern utopia is facing a silent, systemic crisis, one that doesn't involve war, natural disaster, or economic collapse. Instead, Japan is undergoing something far more subtle, but equally destructive, a demographic decline that is accelerating every year. Since 2008, Japan's population has been shrinking, not temporarily, but in a steady, measurable, and irreversible pattern. The birth rate is falling. The population is aging. Towns are disappearing. Entire villages are becoming ghost zones. Schools are closing. Deaths outnumber births by nearly a 2.1 ratio. This isn't just a national issue. Japan is showing the world what happens when a highly developed society fails to replace itself. And it's happening in real time, quietly, efficiently, and without resistance. To understand how Japan ended up in this situation, we have to look at its demographic history. A century ago, in the early 20th century, Japan was a growing nation with high birth rates and expanding cities. After World War II, the country experienced a dramatic population boom, much like the post-war baby booms seen in Europe and North America. In 1950, Japan's population was around 83 million people. By 1970, it surpassed 100 million. By 1990, over 123 million. And in 2008, Japan reached its historical peak, 128.1 million. But then, the curve turned. From that point forward, the population began to decline. At first, slowly, by a few thousand per year. Then, over time, the losses grew. By 2024, Japan's population has dropped to around 123.5 million. That's a net loss of over 4.5 million people in just 16 years. And projections show that this is only the beginning. According to Japan's National Institute of Population and Social Security Research, by 2050, the population could drop below 100 million. By 2100, under 75 million. If current trends continue. To put that into perspective, Japan may lose nearly half of its population over the next 75 years. Not due to catastrophe, but due to the choices and structures of modern life. And it's not just about total numbers. The composition of the population is changing as well. There are fewer children, fewer working-age adults, and more elderly than ever before. In the 1960s and 70s, the average Japanese family had 2 or more children. Today, many families have none. In some rural towns, entire generations are missing. Some municipalities report 0 births in entire calendar years. Other towns dissolve completely, not due to natural disaster, but simply because there is no one left. What we are witnessing in Japan is not a sudden collapse. It's a slow erosion, year by year, generation by generation, of a population that is not being replaced. And as we will see in the next sections, this is not just a statistical trend. It affects every part of Japanese society, from education and healthcare to housing, economy, relationships, and national identity. One of the core reasons for Japan's population decline is its extremely low birth rate. The fertility rate, which means the average number of children a woman is expected to have over her lifetime, is currently around 1.26 children per woman in Japan, 2023 data. To maintain a stable population, without immigration, a fertility rate of approximately 2.1 is needed. This number compensates for children who do not survive to adulthood and balances the population across generations. Japan's fertility rate has been below this replacement level for over 40 years. In 1973, When Japan was still experiencing post-war economic growth, over 2 million babies were born. By 2022, this number dropped to fewer than 800,000 births per year, less than half the number from 50 years ago. This dramatic decline is not unique to Japan, but it is among the most severe worldwide. To compare, South Korea has a fertility rate of 0.72, the lowest in the world. The United States is around 1.7. France stands at about 1.8. India maintains roughly 2.0 children per woman. Nigeria has one of the highest, over 5.3. Why does Japan's birth rate remain so low despite government efforts? Over the last 2 decades, Japan has implemented a range of policies aimed at increasing births. These include financial incentives, such as child allowances and tax breaks, expansion of free or subsidized childcare facilities, encouragement of parental leave for both mothers and fathers, campaigns to promote work-life balance. However, these measures have largely failed to reverse the trend. Why? One reason is the economic reality for young couples. The cost of raising children in Japan is extremely high. Housing in major cities like Tokyo and Osaka is prohibitively expensive. Private education and tutoring, which many parents consider essential, add thousands of dollars per year. Many young people face precarious employment, low wages, and job insecurity, which discourages long-term family planning. Raising a child is seen not only as financially risky, but also as a lifestyle sacrifice. Another factor is cultural. Many Japanese men and women delay marriage or choose not to marry at all. Surveys reveal that more than 40% of men aged 18 to 34 have no romantic partner, and about 30% of women in the same age group are unmarried. Reasons cited include lack of time, high social pressure, anxiety, and changing priorities. For some, the idea of marriage and children seems daunting or even undesirable. Social expectations and traditional gender roles create tension. Women are expected to handle childcare and household duties, often at the expense of their careers. Men face intense work demands that leave little room for family life. The result is a society where intimacy, marriage, and childbearing are no longer seen as natural or necessary parts of life for many young adults. This fundamental shift in values and lifestyle is perhaps the most difficult challenge to address. The shrinking number of children has immediate social consequences. Schools face closure due to declining enrollment. Local governments lose tax revenue. Community support structures weaken. As a result, whole towns and rural regions are left with aging populations and no new families to sustain them. Alongside a declining birth rate, Japan faces a rapid aging of its population, one of the fastest and most pronounced in the world. As of 2024, approximately 29% of Japan's population is over 65 years old, about 36 million people. This is the highest proportion of elderly citizens in any major industrialized country. The median age in Japan is now about 49 years, meaning half the population is older than that. By 2050, projections suggest that 1 in 3 Japanese people will be over 65. In some rural areas, over 15% of residents are aged 80 or older. This demographic shift has profound social, economic, and political consequences. First, the burden on the healthcare system is increasing dramatically. Older people typically require more medical care, long-term treatment, and support for chronic conditions. Japan spends a large share of its GDP on healthcare, over 11%, which is above the OECD average. Second, the pension system faces unprecedented strain. With fewer working-age adults contributing and more retirees drawing benefits, the financial sustainability of public pensions is at risk. Third, labor shortages are becoming critical across many sectors. Japan's workforce is shrinking and aging simultaneously. Industries such as construction, manufacturing, and caregiving suffer from lack of available workers. To cope, Japan has turned to robotics and automation, especially in elder care. Robots help with tasks such as lifting patients, providing reminders for medication, and offering companionship. While innovative, these solutions cannot fully replace human care and social interaction. Moreover, a smaller workforce means lower economic growth potential. Japan's GDP growth has been sluggish for decades, partly due to demographic factors. This aging trend is seen by experts as largely irreversible. Even if birth rates rise slightly, the existing age structure means the population will continue to shrink for decades. Politically, the preferences and priorities of an aging electorate may slow reforms aimed at increasing immigration or changing labor laws. Socially, communities with many elderly and few young people face declining vitality and risk of collapse. In summary, Japan's aging population is a major driver of its demographic crisis, impacting the economy, social systems, and the very fabric of society. The demographic crisis in Japan is not only a matter of numbers, economics, or policy, it is deeply rooted in the country's culture and social structure. One of the strongest influences is Japan's work culture. The expectation to work long hours, often 10 to 12 hours a day, is ingrained in many companies. Taking time off or prioritizing family over work is often frowned upon. This pressure makes it difficult for both men and women to balance career and family life. Women, in particular, face a complex dilemma. Despite progress in education and employment, many women encounter significant barriers in the workplace after childbirth. The traditional expectation remains that women should manage the majority of childcare and housework. This double burden discourages many from having more than one child or any children at all. Moreover, there is a persistent gender inequality in Japan's labor market. Women earn less on average and have fewer leadership opportunities. This inequality fuels dissatisfaction and reduces motivation for marriage and motherhood. Another important cultural factor is the idealization of individualism and personal freedom. Younger generations increasingly prioritize personal goals, comfort, and independence over traditional family roles. Marriage and child-rearing are often seen as restrictive or burdensome. This shift has coincided with rising social anxiety, loneliness, and fear of failure. Many young people express a lack of confidence in forming lasting relationships or starting families. High expectations for partners and relationships also contribute. Dating often involves complicated social rituals and pressure to conform to ideal standards. Failure to meet these expectations leads to frustration and withdrawal. Economic instability worsens these social challenges. Irregular employment contracts, low wages, and job insecurity create uncertainty about the future. This financial anxiety discourages family formation and childbearing. Finally, urbanization plays a role. As people move to large cities, community ties weaken and traditional support networks for families disappear. Isolated nuclear families face more challenges raising children without extended family support. In sum, the interplay of work culture, gender roles, individualism, economic factors, and urbanization creates a complex environment where having children is no longer seen as a practical or desirable choice for many Japanese. Japan faces a serious social phenomenon known as hikikomori, individuals who completely withdraw from society. These people avoid leaving their homes, reject social interaction, and often live isolated for months or years. The Japanese government estimates that there are between 1 and 4 million hikikomori nationwide. Most are men between the ages of 30 and 50. Hikikomori are often characterized by social anxiety, depression, and fear of failure. They neither work nor study, and their withdrawal contributes to a shrinking active population. Another related issue is the rise of incels, involuntary celibates, men who desire romantic relationships but feel unable to form them. Many cite social rejection, lack of confidence, and cultural pressure as reasons. This phenomenon further reduces birth rates and contributes to social isolation. Closely tied to these trends is the problem of kodakushi, or lonely death. Elderly individuals die alone at home, often undiscovered for weeks or months. In Japan, over 30,000 cases of lonely death are reported annually, mostly involving elderly men in urban areas. These phenomena highlight a growing fragmentation of Japanese society, where isolation and loneliness become pervasive. Such social withdrawal accelerates the demographic crisis, as fewer people form families or participate in community life. In sum, Japan's rising loneliness epidemic, combined with cultural and economic pressures, creates a feedback loop that deepens population decline. Unlike many other developed countries facing demographic challenges, Japan refuses to use immigration as a solution to population decline. Currently, foreigners make up only about 2 to 3% of Japan's population, one of the lowest proportions among industrialized nations. Japanese society places a high value on cultural homogeneity and national identity. There is a widespread fear that opening borders would dilute traditions and disrupt social cohesion. Government policies are very restrictive. Obtaining permanent residency or citizenship is difficult. Visa programs for foreign workers are limited and tightly controlled. Social integration support is minimal, even with significant labor shortages in sectors like construction, elder care, and logistics. Japan maintains strict immigration controls. This contrasts sharply with countries like Canada, Germany, and Australia, which actively encourage immigration to offset declining birth rates and aging populations. Japan's reluctance to embrace immigration means it cannot replenish its workforce or population through newcomers. This isolationist approach contributes to the nation's demographic challenges and limits economic growth potential. Efforts to relax immigration rules have been slow and cautious, met with resistance from parts of society that fear losing cultural uniqueness. As a result, Japan faces the paradox of labor shortages but minimal immigrant population, a key factor in its ongoing demographic decline. Japan's economic success has long been driven by a culture of hard work, discipline, and loyalty to the company. However, this same culture contributes to the country's demographic crisis by making family life difficult to balance with career ambitions. The phenomenon of karoshi, death from overwork, is well known in Japan. Many workers put in 10 to 12-hour days, often without taking full vacation. The pressure to conform to company expectations leaves little time or energy for relationships or children. This work-centric lifestyle disproportionately affects men, who are expected to be the primary breadwinners. Women, meanwhile, face the challenge of returning to work after childbirth in a society that often views maternal responsibilities as incompatible with full employment. The result is a system where career and family are seen as competing, not complementary, paths. Many couples delay or forgo having children because they feel unable to manage both roles. Additionally, the traditional model of lifetime employment is eroding, but still influences societal expectations. Young people face unstable contract jobs with fewer benefits and security, creating economic anxiety. Financial concerns are significant. The cost of living in urban centers is high, and many young people struggle with debt, housing costs, and job insecurity. This economic pressure discourages family formation and childbearing. Even the wealthy often choose not to have children. The decision to remain child-free is increasingly common among well-educated urbanites who prioritize personal freedom and career growth. Digital technology and entertainment offer alternative forms of engagement and fulfillment, replacing traditional social and family bonds for some. This trend further reduces motivation to marry or have children. In summary, Japan's work culture and economic realities create an environment where raising a family is viewed as too difficult, risky, or unattractive, accelerating population decline. Japan's demographic crisis is not only visible in statistics but also in the physical landscape. Entire regions and towns are literally disappearing as populations shrink and age. As of 2023, Japan has over 8.5 million empty homes, known as a kaya. That means roughly 1 in every 7 houses stands vacant. Many of these homes are located in rural areas where younger generations have moved to cities for education and work. With fewer births and continued outmigration, these regions face rapid depopulation. Some prefectures report vacancy rates exceeding 30%. Communities lose residents, and essential services like schools, hospitals, and shops close down. This creates a vicious cycle. Without families and children, local economies decline. Fewer jobs and amenities lead to more people leaving. Towns become ghostly, and infrastructure deteriorates. These empty villages stand as stark symbols of Japan's demographic decline. In some cases, government officials have suggested consolidating municipalities or encouraging relocation to sustain services. The disappearance of entire communities poses a threat not only to local culture, but also to national cohesion. Additionally, abandoned homes create safety and environmental risks. Empty buildings can become targets for crime, fires, and decay. In urban centers, housing remains expensive, but outside the cities, many areas are hollowing out. This geographic imbalance further strains the country's ability to maintain infrastructure and social support systems. The geography of death is a tangible and visual reminder of the deep demographic challenges Japan faces. For over 2 decades, the Japanese government has implemented numerous policies to combat population decline and encourage childbirth. These efforts include cash incentives and child allowances, subsidies for housing, targeted at young families, expansion of free or low-cost daycare and preschool services, promotion of paternity leave to encourage men to participate more in childcare, development of robotics and technology to support elder care, limited visa programs to attract foreign workers. Despite these measures, the population continues to shrink and age. Why? First, most policies focus on financial incentives, which alone are insufficient to change deep-rooted social behaviors and cultural norms. Second, many working parents still face rigid work environments that discourage taking full parental leave or balancing work and family. Third, there is a disconnect between policy design and lived reality. Subsidies and daycare are helpful, but if parents face long commutes, unstable jobs, or lack of community support, the burden remains heavy. Fourth, government responses often prioritize economic productivity over social well-being. Efforts focus on keeping people employed rather than creating family-friendly lifestyles. Fifth, policies have been incremental and reactive, lacking bold or systemic reform. Finally, there is resistance within society itself to accepting immigration or more flexible gender roles, both of which could alleviate pressures on families. The result is a patchwork of initiatives that fail to address the root causes of demographic decline. Experts warn that without fundamental changes in work culture, gender expectations, and immigration policy, these efforts will continue to fall short. Japan's government faces the difficult challenge of balancing tradition with the urgent need for adaptation. Looking forward, Japan's demographic trends paint a challenging and uncertain picture. By 2050, the population is projected to shrink to around 100 million, and by 2100, possibly to less than 75 million. This means Japan could lose nearly half its current population within this century. Such a drastic decline will have wide-ranging effects. Economic impact. A smaller workforce will limit economic growth, reduce innovation, and strain social welfare systems. Regional collapse. Many rural towns and villages may disappear entirely as their populations age and migrate. Cultural changes. With fewer young people, traditions, arts, and languages risk fading away. Urban challenges. Large cities may face overcrowding of the remaining young workforce and infrastructure stress. Experts debate whether Japan can reverse these trends. Some believe technological innovations, including robotics and AI, will compensate for labor shortages and support elderly care. Others argue that without significant social reform, including gender equality and immigration openness, demographic decline will continue. Japan's experience offers a warning and a lesson to the rest of the world. Other developed nations, including South Korea, Italy, Germany, and even China, face similar challenges. How societies respond to falling birth rates and aging populations will shape the future of global civilization. Japan is not just a country in decline. It is a mirror reflecting global demographic realities. Its population crisis is the result of complex cultural, economic, and social factors. While the situation is dire, it is not an inevitable tragedy. Awareness, adaptation, and bold reforms can change the trajectory. Understanding Japan's story is crucial for policymakers, demographers, and citizens worldwide. It is a wake-up call about the consequences of modern lifestyles and societal choices. In the end, Japan's demographic challenge is a test of humanity's ability to balance progress with sustainability, tradition with change, and individualism with community.